Hi everyone, welcome back to Casual Watch Talk on a Tuesday. A quick, well, not a quick one. We're going to do a full hour questions and answers show. We definitely got to talk about the Blancpain rumors. But before we do that, should we do a little wristwatch check? Mark, do you want to kick us off?
Well, it's not a little wristwatch, but there you go.
Oh, there we go.
The Omega Seamaster Regatta chronograph. Another one of those watches to frighten any European watch journalist due to its 44.25 mil size and considerable heft. But they don't make them like that anymore, and they really should. It's a wonderful one.
Is that the original brace? Is that the original band?
No, this is a Hirsch Robbie strap.
Oh wow, because it looks matches quite well, doesn't it?
It does. It's one of the few watches where I felt the need to change out the original for something that suits it better. But yeah, it suits it perfectly.
Yeah, cool. Sam beat me to it. I was about to say that strap is a perfect combo. I would have thought it came that way.
No. It only came on the sort of standard Seamaster bracelet, which just doesn't work on that watch. But the Hirsch Robbie, perfect fit. So that's what it lives on. But don't buy one of those Hirsch Robbie straps on a déployant. They are not fit for human hands. They are entirely the wrong shape and will cut holes in you. Wait till you've got a proper bracelet. And save yourself $35 in the process too.
Awesome. Bandrew, what are you wearing?
I am also wearing a somewhat large watch. I am wearing a King Turtle, and I did not think this was going to work, but goodness gracious, does this wear well. Even for a thin-wristed guy like me, this works shockingly well. 45 millimeters, I think. I actually like how this wears better than the 5KX, the Seiko Sports 5 dive watch.
Yeah, the I just in my last video on how poorly the Grand Seiko wore on me, my example was that the turtle case wears like a glove. Same with the Sumo case. There's just something about the way that the case is balanced. They're awesome. They're awesome to wear, and I prefer it over the SKX. I would say I was always wondered why the SKX got all the accolades when the turtle I thought was more distinctive looking.
I'm waiting to pick up a couple different iterations of this. I want to try the Willard next as well. It's a deep dark hole for me.
Yeah, there is a not to go further down that rabbit hole, but Pete's always obsessed about. There is a turtle version that has the AL movement in the unfinished Grand Seiko movement. I forget which model it is, but there's one in a turtle case. So.
Okay.
He always has his eye on it. Patrick, what are you wearing?
Well, to defend the world of Grand Seiko after Sam's amazingly almost viral video, I wanted to show that a Grand Seiko can wear just fine.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
I'm wearing an oldie but a goodie. This is the tungsten version of the Grand Seiko that they made in 1993. So I've got a kind of an old vintage one, and I guess it's a fun little watch. But I wanted the Grand Seiko lovers out there to feel a little bit of love.
Yeah, if we get a question about it later, I can talk a little bit more about the wild weekend I've had with that the comment section of that upload. But more on that later, perhaps. Steve, what are you wearing?
Yeah, so today I've got my figured we might be talking about Blancpain. So this is my Waltham badged Blancpain bathyscaphe that I got from my dad about 10 years ago. And yeah, it's a super cool watch, although I'm so nervous to wear it and lose it or have something happen to it. I almost never wear it anymore, but yeah, it's one of the first watches I got in my collection, and you know, one of the few I'll probably never ever sell.
Awesome. And then yeah, it's a really cool watch. Then I am wearing also a Grand Seiko. So I'm wearing my new quartz Grand Seiko. And look at that. Look how that wears. Look at that. Normal doesn't hang off the wrist. Wonderful. I put it on this Barton strap. It does have a metal strap, but a metal bracelet, I should say. But I've got some Uncle Seiko ones coming because I want to do a review with the Uncle Seiko because it's 19 millimeters, annoyingly. So I want to do a review with the Uncle Seiko before I put the bracelet back on. Also, I'm going to be uploading a review later this week, maybe tomorrow, of this. You can't really see it, but it's the Mugen limited edition Casio Edifice. So if anyone's was into your Japanese cars, modding them, or Japanese motorsport, check out that review soon and see what a hash I did of the history of modding cars, which I definitely wasn't in that scene.
They made a Formula One engine too at one point.
Yes, they did. Yeah, in the Red Bull.
Williams, I think, because they were when Honda had customer teams, it was Mugen that ran the customer engines.
Yeah,
and it was one of the original Honda's son owned Mugen or ran Mugen.
Yeah, Hirotoshi.
Yeah,
Hirotoshi Honda. Yeah. So this, not that we're talking about this one, but this isn't just Casio like slapping the Mugen logo on. The strap is made from Alcantara, so the same as the bucket seats. It's got their 3 stripes. It's got an extra keeper with their 3 stripes on there, 3 stripes, gold, red, and white. And then it also has this metal keeper, which actually stays on the Alcantara. It's friction. And then the whole case is a carbon. It's like a skeleton design. You can't really see it here, but you can see through it. This watch, for an Edifice that's like $300, it's absolutely awesome. There's one big fail, I think, with this watch, but you'll have to watch a review for that. But if you are a fan of Mugen, this watch is, and it's Bluetooth, they're absolutely awesome. I think they're sold out, so I'm sorry about that, but really wearable. A big fan of this. The actual so we're not doing a mini review here, but the bezel, they use the same font as on the gear sticks, the Mugen gear sticks or gear knobs. Okay,
that's cool.
Let's before we dive into it, let's just say hello to everyone. So Kevin, good evening. Thanks for the emails this week, Kevin. And then we've got Craig, who's hello from Canada. And then we've got a few Canadians in there. We've got William from London, Ontario, and then we've got Craig's in Edmonton, which is actually the only place I've been in Canada. The only place I've visited in Canada was Edmonton. And then got Von Krul from Canada as well. So yeah, the whole full. Oh yeah, and we got another one. Time to go travel.
Wow,
Burlington, Ontario. We've got a full Canadian crew. Awesome, welcome everyone. And let's just see if we've got any questions before we start. I'm just going to star a few, but I think because I put it in the thumbnail and we have to talk about it, should we kick it off with the big? Is it big news? The biggest news is that it looks like there is going to be a Blancpain. I say Blancpain, but Blancpain Swatch. What does everyone think? I mean, this seems like the obvious next one, I think. But I guess the question is, what do we think of it? Do we think it's going to do well? And also, do we think it's going to look like this because Monochrome just mocked this one up? This isn't actually what it's going to look like.
I'm not sure I care.
Oh my God.
Just be honest.
Let's unpack that, as I hear in meetings all the time.
So, likely to be bioceramic. I think people have decided it's going to be bioceramic. They have latched on to the Jean-Claude Biver quote about Blancpain will never do quartz, so therefore the Swatch will never be quartz. Okay, but everyone's hoping for System 51, but if it's quartz, I'll see a few heads explode, which will be amusing at least. Will it help promote Blancpain in the way that the Moon Swatch helped Omega? Who can say? Most normal people have never heard of Blancpain unless they speak French and think it means white bread or possibly a pen. So, they will be nice. They will have perhaps a watch audience, but I don't think they'll trigger like the Speedmaster Moonwatch did. So yeah, I don't care. I mean, I'm not going to wait outside a Swatch boutique that's got a yellow case in the window just because it might have one of these in it anyway.
I think
I'm a bit of a skeptic, put it that way.
I think that mock-up looks really nice. I think they have a bit of an issue. Maybe you can correct me. I don't think I've seen a swatch that has more than splash-proof water resistance. Are there any that have actual water resistance?
I think there is a diving one, isn't there, with a dive bezel? I'm sure they do. You're right, though. The majority of them are splash-proof because they have the battery hatch at the back, so you're spot on. But I think they have done a dive watch. But probably is the question of, would it have like a screw-down crown? Because I can't imagine the bioceramic. You could thread a.
Yeah, probably not.
Well, you can make waterproof watches with 150-meter water resistance with a push-pull crown if you get your gaskets right. You don't have to have a screw-down crown to have decent to acceptable water resistance. It's not a requirement. The Christopher Ward super compressor, 150-meter water resistance, push-pull crown. You don't need a screw-down crown for decent water resistance.
The Seiko 5, 100 meters, push-pull.
Yep.
Yeah. So Jay, let me just find a picture of this because we've got James Duffy just said, yeah, there was a scuba 200-meter swatch that had 200-meter water resistance. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen one of those. I vaguely remember it had a bezel like those tags from the 90s, but I don't think
it does look like it does look like a Formula One tag, doesn't it?
Yeah.
At least bezel-wise.
So do you think that if that is going to be the model they go with, do you think we'll see water resistance, or do you think it would just be splash proof and it's just a dive style? Deal with it.
No, I would be very surprised if it doesn't have water resistance. I mean, the teaser that they showed was a picture of the a card underwater.
Oh,
so,
yeah,
yeah, right. There you go. So yeah, I strongly think it's going to have some water resistance, probably 100 meters, something like that.
Okay.
But I'm most interested to see the colorways because, from the article, I think it was in GQ UK, it was saying that the colors would be like based off of sea slugs in these different oceans. And so I'm really interested to see what the colorways look like. But I think it's going to be a similar situation like with the Speedmaster or Moon Swatch, at least initially, where there's going to be a huge flood of people there on day one and for a period of time who are buying these things. But I would be very surprised if it has the same sort of holding power that the Moon Swatch did. And I think a big reason for that is that a lot of people, if you look on Reddit and some other watch forums, a lot of people have had really negative experiences with the bioceramic and kind of feel like it's a disposable watch. So, are you going to get those same people buying this watch again? I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's not necessarily, do I think real watch enthusiasts are going to buy it? My answer to there is no. I kind of think it's going to play the same flippers market that it did with the original Moon Swatch, where, if it's going to be boutique only, which I'm assuming, I don't know if that's been put anywhere, but if it's boutique only, hopefully
it will be boutique only, Patrick. And the other thing they've said is you have to look for a yellow pelican case in the window. They have a specific case for it.
So it's some boutiques, not even all.
And so it may not be all boutiques, and you have to look for the yellow pelican case, at least to start with. So it could just be another, that's just another way of, you'd like to think they manage the crowds better, but at least this way people know where the crowds will be this time.
True. Yeah. And of course, we have to see if they're going to have the same supply issues they had before, where, on opening day, they had 20 watches and 1,000 people outside. If they do a good job this time and actually have enough for the grand majority of people to buy, in a way that's going to kind of destroy the market. I mean, what made these so crazy popular was that, 100 people, 20 people, stores closed, nobody got it. That day you could flip your moon swatch for 5-6 times its value, and the minute Captain Scalper sees that, they're immediately camping out for every new release. So part of me says, hey, it's going to be initially popular just because of flipping culture, but I don't know if the numbers are high and if it's just going to stay. I think it's going to kind of fall off. I mean, in general, I think these mock-ups are pretty good looking. I like that black and orange one a lot, but would I buy it? Someone put in the comments, it just looks like a boring watch, and yeah, I kind of agree with that. I mean, from 10 feet away, it just looks like a non-Blancpain Swatch diver.
And
so
the 1953 Blancpain was all the rage with the micro brands in the last couple of years. It's it was very closely copied by the Christopher Ward Aquitaine. It's not a new design. It's not perhaps even a desirable design in that sense. People just think it's a generic dive watch. So it'll be an interesting experience on the 9th.
We've got a great comment here from Orange Hand. He said, if that's the actual design, the insult to injuries, it's better than any regular production. that is true, because I've always admired the 50 Fathoms, but the barrier to entry one with its syringe hands, I'm not feeling that at all. These look really good. I mean, I hate to say it, but if it had the date on it, I would definitely get one of these. If it looks close to this, I think I would get this. The moon swatch, I got over that pretty quick, to be honest. I really got over it fast, and I even made an upload on it, because they really put their staff in harm's way, I think. I mean, yeah, you could argue they didn't exactly, and they didn't probably know what was going to happen, but once they did know what was going to happen, they could have easily sold that online and killed off all of the scalpers, the poor retail staff that were having to answer questions every other question, like, do you have the moon swatch? But Patrick, the store they've just opened a brand new swatch store in the Mall of Millennia, so, and it sells the moon swatch. So if they do sell this, they'll probably sell it there. So there you go.
In fact, I was in my local Omega boutique on Monday, and somebody was asking if they had the moon swatch in there then. And you could just see everybody in the store who worked there. They've heard this question 10,000 times, and they were just going, "God, that wasn't me."
Yeah.
Do you think it would have more? Go on, Patrick. Sorry, I was just
going to say the question that I have, which I've seen one person comment on, is an approximate price, because if it does run the System 51. I think those swatches are already in the $250, $300 price range.
Yeah.
So if they throw the, exclusivity Blancpain name on there, is this going to be a $500 watch? Because that, I think, would crush it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, what is the most expensive swatch? I don't follow Swatch at all, so.
Well, they have. I mean, they have the ironies, don't they? The Swatch ironies, but I think they're only. Well, let's have a look. I had a Swatch irony for ages, and it was they're bulletproof. So this is. I had something similar to this one. I'm not sure. Oh, it's actually. Oh, come on. Messing about with this again. Let's just see what we've got here. Let's see how much these are. 210. So that is cheaper than that's cheaper than the moon swatch, isn't it? And that's a full metal case.
Yeah. Can you find something that's got the System 51 in it?
Yeah. Let's have a look. Oh, there we go. System 51, 240, but there you go. Here's full metal case. System 51. Yeah, so 240.
So it's going to be potentially about the same price as a moon swatch.
Which is what 249 was it, or was it 299?
Yeah. Well, this is pre Blancpain pricing though, so I definitely think they're going to at least throw $100 on there. So it might be more, 360 versus 260.
Well, they'd have to put a well, yeah, they can't really do a metal case, can they, on it? Because otherwise they would just be replicating a Blancpain just with a with a quartz movement. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Well, let's just have a look at some of the questions and comments that have come through. So, Brassic Time says, "Can't watch live, but what does the panel think? How far can Swatch take collabs before it gets really old, i.e., Moonshine Seconds or a Blancpain X Swatch Masterstroke or Damp Squib? How far can they? Well, they're gonna do it to death, aren't they? I mean, that's the.
And I don't think that the general population is as sick of it as the watch community is. My dad still, if he could get a moon swatch, he would. But you can't buy them online. It seems to only be the enthusiasts who are watching every single release who are just thinking, oh my gosh, please stop. Please stop. But if you don't pay attention, it's just another interesting looking watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
well,
and
some of those moonshine collabs were just silly, though. I mean, I liked the original moonshine collab. I thought that was pretty cool, just the gold hand. But then they put like a cherry on it and a strawberry and some other symbol. I was like, oh god, those are just hideous. I would be so upset if I walked into the store and that's the one they had.
To Bandrew's point, if you don't pay attention, you don't notice. I mean, sort of, if you read the media and you go, oh, another moon swatch, I won't bother reading that article and move on. It's really easy to ignore them.
Yeah, it's not worth the energy to get angry.
Yeah.
I would still buy a moon swatch if I could get one, but I'm not going to fly somewhere to do it.
No, yeah. I mean, if I ever went through Zurich Airport again, they have a swatch store there, and it's just like, I didn't pick one up. I didn't want one. I killed 10 minutes chatting to the lady in the store, but I don't want one, so it's not a problem.
Yeah. I'm sure I would have sold it. I'm sure if I'd got one, I would have sold it by now. I'm almost positive I would have done. Okay, so next up, a bit of a chat. So Craig's saying, what do we think about the wait times for the Bel Canto? I mean, I interviewed Mike, and I think he was probably as honest as he could be on it. I think that they just want to get it right, don't they? They have to get this one right, otherwise it's probably it's important they get it right. I should say. I won't extrapolate.
I mean,
on that.
it's driven a huge revenue. It's helping them be reliably profitable. They can't afford to screw it up. You know, you've got how many several thousand back orders, so you've got to get your supply chain built and working to deal with an order of magnitude increase in demand. They originally planned 300, then 300, and now you're looking at having 6,000 orders. That's one heck of a jump in your supply chain, and you cannot scale up. I know Pete loves to say manufacturing is easy. No, it's not. And doing a factor of 10 scale up certainly isn't, particularly for an industry that's as small and mostly handmade as a lot of the Swiss stuff is. So if you're on that wait list and you decide to pull out, I wouldn't blame you, but I don't blame Christopher Ward either. People just have to learn to be patient. You can wait 3 years for a watch without any information. At least they're trying to tell you what the situation is.
Yeah, it's such a customized piece, that it's not like they can just call up ETA and say, hey, we need 10,000 more of this movement. It's really different than any other, I feel like, watch on the market at that same price point. And yeah, as you mentioned, Mark, I mean, it's not easy for them to, ramp up that production, especially with some of these parts that are, difficult to make as well. So, it's like the balance of trying to complete orders on time, but also have, the quality control that's there. You don't want them rushing out, such a specialized watch that doesn't work, or it only works for a few months and then it breaks. So
Yep.
yeah, I'm in total agreement. I think you have to just be patient and just deal with it. And, at the end of the day, I think it's going to be worth it.
I mean, I think the hand polishing is done by Chronode, who do a lot of work for the high-end Swiss industry. And if you've only got one person that's trained to do the hand polishing for that watch, and then suddenly you need to find 2 or 3 more people to hand polish, you could be training the people for a year or 2 years to get them up to standard. So a lot of their smaller, unique suppliers, there's 60 additional parts on top of a jump hour that's a modified Solita. So that's there's a lot of unique parts to that watch and it only takes one failure somewhere in that supply chain to screw things for months.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. I really do feel for those who are waiting, but you just accept that you're going to have to be patient or you take your name off the list.
Yeah. No, I agree. So next question we've got. So Nathan's asking, Breguet Swatch next? I don't think people know Breguet, do they? I mean the general public.
Yeah, why not? Why not? If you like Blancpain, why not Breguet? I mean,
I would argue that Blancpain are not well known to the general public, except possibly for pens. You say you'd have a Blancpain watch. I think most people would just look at you blankly. Pardon the pun. Blanc, well known to watch fans, but to the normies out there, no.
So, well, then
Breguet even worse.
Yeah, I mean, but I can't. I mean, I've got the Breguet site up here. I can't think of like what the standout Breguet is. Because most watch companies, what their standout. I know what their standout watch is, but I can't think of like, oh, that's the one they would do.
I would say Breguet is only known for the hour hand. That's what Breguet are now famous for. If you don't follow the history of horology, but whenever you talk of Breguet, you talk about the hands, and it's that circle at the end
so
of the hour
just their general hand, because that one looks like a hand heart, doesn't it? But you mean this sort of
just an opinion, but yes, Abraham Louis Breguet, Marie Antoinette, co-inventor of the tourbillon, etc., etc., etc. But and they're very, very nicely made watches, but they're famous for their history rather than their current product, I think.
Yeah, famous for being famous.
Yeah.
Okay, and then next question. So Sean, I've got my answers teed up for this, but Sean says, I have a topic. I need a good travel watch since buying my Rolex Explorer 2. I do not want to take it traveling with me. I wear this thing all the time and it's hard to buy something else. I've got 2 picks, but before I dive in, does anybody else have a suggestion?
What size? Because we could recommend you something that's 34 millimeter when you want a 44, or we could recommend you something 44 when you want a 38. So let's start off with the Longines Hydra Conquest GMT. Great travel watch.
So I'm thinking, because he says it's hard to buy something else, I'm going to go even more affordable. And when I had to fly recently, I wasn't comfortable wearing one of the watches that I wanted to, so I just wore a G-Shock. Pick up a G-Shock Square. It's the most mindless watch to wear while traveling. You don't have to think about it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Great advice.
Yeah, when I would a little bit of work travel and took my metal Square G-Shock, because it syncs with your phone, so you can easily change the time if you want to. It's got four of the world timers on there. My picks were, well, I mean, this my Grand Seiko is a GMT, but as you can see, my picks at the top here. So first is my Sumo GMT. I love it, although it's not that good a GMT because it's quite hard to see the numbers are very tiny. Seeing there, but it's a GMT. and I like traveling with it. And then the other one is this is the last Christopher Ward that I reviewed, and it was awesome. I'm actually seriously thinking about buying one of these, but I've got like quite a few GMTs now, but this was awesome. This GMT light, 39mm, got the GMT hand. It isn't the quick set GMT, so I don't think you can move the hour hand, or maybe you can.
No, that's going to be an office GMT, not a traveler.
That uses the 300, or is it the 330?
Yes. The 330, yeah.
So
yeah.
The other GMT that I wore traveling was the prior Christopher Ward GMT with the Pepsi bezel, which is a really nice watch. It's got a massive dial with too much dead space, but it's a fun watch to wear. Yeah,
I wonder if they still make that one, because that's when I remember that Christopher Ward really, for me, really came into my mind, because that was a beautiful. They must not make it anymore. Hang on,
yeah, they replaced that one, or they discontinued it.
Yeah, it was a really beautiful one, that, wasn't it? So they must have replaced it now with the Sealander. But yeah, that GMT was. Oh, there's that one I reviewed, but with the other strap. So those are my two picks. But go on, Steve. What's your picks for the travelers?
To be honest, I think your watch is like perfectly what he's looking for, because he has a Rolex Explorer 2. Your watch looks just like a Rolex Explorer 2.
Yeah,
it's affordable. It has a GMT function on it.
Got the jump hour. Yeah, it's got not the jump hour, but it's got the where you can you pull out the crown and just move the hour back and forth. But the GMT stand always stays on.
I think that's a great choice. I mean, for me, I'm the same way. I don't bring any expensive watches with me when I travel. Usually, I think if you're going somewhere, always assume that you could lose your watch or it could get damaged. So just keep that in mind when you buy something. I think something else I would consider would be like a Fairer Lander, another kind of affordable GMT as well. Looks nice, and it's not so expensive that if you lost it or it fell off a counter or something like that, it would ruin your whole month. So I would say go cheaper if you can. But I think honestly, Sam, your watch is a great option there.
Yeah, probably about 2,000. I think you can pick up the prior version for this around the $2,000 mark from Japan. But Patrick, did you have a pick?
I'm going to beat a dead horse to death and agree with Steve. So, I mean, the
GMT.
The sad thing for me is, if you're a watch guy, you still kind of want to be a watch guy. And, obviously, if you've got, Rolex ambitions, that means, you like higher horology. So, you probably don't want a $500 micro brand. You want something that, if you see someone on the plane, they're going to be like, hey, that's cool. And, I think Grand Seiko pushes that button, but also isn't going to get your arm chopped off. So, I think Grand Seiko is great for that. And having a quartz is probably the most convenient thing to travel with, because you don't have to worry about bringing a winder or something to keep everything energized. And, you're talking to a guy, though, who thinks GMT is probably one of the most unused complications, because I'm a weirdo. I just set my watch to where I am. But for those of you who like a GMT, yeah, I get it. But Sam, I'd go with yours.
Yeah, no, it's a good. I'll do a review of it soon. But I'm much happier than the spring drive one I had. Just trying to filter through if there's any other questions. Craig's asking, does anyone have the moon phase Christopher Ward? I'm wondering if you mean the moon glow. But you have a moon phase Christopher Ward, don't you?
Yeah, if you give me a minute, I'll find it. Back in a moment.
Yes. So let me just find the. I'm wondering if you mean the moon glow.
Yeah, I saw that moon glow in New York, and they had it under a black light, and that thing is pretty fun to see.
Yeah, I've never seen one of these in person, but when I was interviewing Mike, he was saying that the Sealander GMT and the moon glow are the biggest sellers, I think, in the US or to the US market. As well as and then it was the Trident 300 after that. wonder if it's got a picture of the actual. There you go. So it's like a completely loomed. Down. Oh, wait, hang on. Mark's back. Oh, hang on. Let me just solo.
If you can see.
Yeah. Why can't I solo layout you? There you go. There we go. There we go. Okay. So yeah, that's the.
If we get this one to work. This is the Christopher Ward C9 moon phase. I don't know when they stopped selling it. They had a blue with a silver moon, and this is the white with the gold moon. I got this one 7 years ago. It's the same movement in the moon glow. It's their own module on a SW200. 41 mil, but quite a thick watch. But you know, the current moon glow is going to be updated, I think, at the end of October. So they're doing another version of the moon glow in October, probably timed for wind up. So that might be something if you're looking to wait, maybe see what the alternative to the moon glow is going to be in October.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Let's have a look. I'm just going through the questions. I don't know whether anybody can answer this one, but William says, just recently was in the Diamond District in New York. Is it wise to buy a Rolex there? Seen a couple of Frank Mueller's at a decent price. What do we feel about the brand? Well, Frank, I was on a live stream with, well, it's part of a two-part question, but I was on a live stream with Paul Thorpe, and they were saying that their argument was that Frank Mueller was the Richard Mille of the 90s or something. But I don't know. Has anybody bought a watch in the Diamond District in New York? Have you, Mark? No. Okay.
I've never bought one, but I definitely don't think there's a problem with it. I mean, the good news about those stores, they're built on reputation, just like the gray market guys. So, you know, they don't want to sell you a fake, because then it gets back that they're selling fake watches. So, you know, it's pretty reputable as long as the price makes sense. You know, if they're trying to sell you a GMT Rolex for $2,000, yeah, run away. But you know, if it sounds reasonable, it looks reasonable, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, and there's a ton of videos, isn't there, online of the Diamond, is it 46th Street or 42nd Street? Okay, so this question might be for Patrick or Mark. Is serious question. As a machinist, why don't the nitrite some cases and bracelets talk about a tough coating to the metal? Nitride some cases. Why don't they nitride some cases and bracelets?
Well, there are some nitrided materials, nitrided or carbide. Certainly, there's a tungsten carbide bezel on the Omega Constellation Globemaster annual calendar. For nitriding, the trouble with nitriding is that are you going to do it before or after you machine and finish the part? Because once you've nitrided something, you ain't going to work it any further. You aren't going to machine it much any further.
What is it, Mark? Do you mind just explaining what the process is?
My understanding, there are, I think, a couple of ways of doing it, but normally, so if you take tungsten nitride, that is tungsten with 3 atoms of nitrogen attached to it, I think. So it makes a very, very hard material.
So it's like tungsten plating sort of thing.
No, well, you're essentially it's like taking tungsten and nitrogen plating it, but it's you're making tungsten with 3 covalent bonds of nitrogen to it. I think. Not that familiar with nitride chemistry this evening. So it makes a very, very hard material. But of course, once you get a hard material, it's harder to work. It's more expensive to work. And I don't know whether it's just an attractive finish to look at either. You know, you see it in machine tools. It's a finish for machine tools.
Right.
Whether it's a finish for watches.
Yes, it's quite
whether
rough.
You can actually finish it to the standard that people want for watches, I don't know. But it would be a very expensive material to work. I mean, tungsten's not a cheap material to work or an easy material to work, as the watch that Patrick showed us earlier was I think tungsten. It ain't an easy material to work. It's, you want to machine that, you're gonna do it slowly and expensively.
Beast here. So some weird micro brand made a tungsten complete watch, and I mean, as I said, the thing's over a decade old. It doesn't even have a scratch on it. It looks brand new because,
and it's fairly heavy as well. I think tungsten's pretty dense too.
My wedding ring's tungsten.
It comes on a full tungsten bracelet, which
good grief.
Absurd. I mean, you wear it and you're just like, no. And I've got small wrists, so it's too much for me. That's why I put it on a good old fashioned Horace strap.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not going to scratch. It's just too hard to work for mass production, I would think.
Okay. Well, yeah. No, thanks for the question, Craig.
Good question.
So let's just see. Here's I'm not sure we can answer this one, but if anybody knows. Question: will Union Glashütte ever be directly available in the US, or will Swatch keep them out of the US market for even longer? I'm not even familiar with that brand. Do you know, Mark?
They sit with Glashütte Original as they're some of the smaller brands that are part of the Swatch empire. I'm more familiar with Glashütte Original than I am with Union Glashütte, but they are, I think, a slightly more modern, more generic interpretation of Glashütte design, whereas Glashütte Original are very much in the Erlanger and Sorner design school of classic German design, whereas Union Glashütte seem to be.
I've never heard of this brand, but as Mark says, these are far more modern.
Yeah, they're a more modern design school than Glashütte Original.
Look at that. The date's on the other side there at 9. The date at 9 o'clock.
Why Swatch don't bring them to the US? I don't know. I don't follow.
They already have so many watches in the same price point. It's like, why add another brand?
Yeah, and I don't think. Although the US seems to be a big market for a lot of watch brands, I don't know that even Glashütte Original are very big in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting question. That's a new brand on me. I'd never heard of them before. It's really cool. Okay, let's just see who else we've got. Let's have a look. So I don't know if we can answer.
Thomas,
this is a proper question. Does anyone have a Tag Heuer or Seiko Pepsi they bought from a man called Wolfgang Reisgram? Is that a joke? I don't.
If it is, I don't get it. But no, I've never bought a watch from Wolfgang. I don't think.
Anyway.
And then you've got Thomas has a question. Thomas Bennett.
Here we go. Do you think that there comes a point in your life where a precious metal watch, probably a dress watch, is desired in the collection?
Ooh.
I will vote yes, because for some odd reason, even though I don't like dress watches, my eyes are falling towards 2 dress watches. One that's more dressy than the other, and both of them are in solid gold. And I have no idea why all of a sudden, though I never was tempted, maybe it's just getting old, I'm like, ooh, that looks nice. So yes, Thomas, yes.
I went watch window shopping on Monday, and the 2 watches I looked at, one was an IWC Portofino in red gold with a blue dial, beautiful dress watch, and then I saw an Omega Deville Trésor with the small seconds and the power reserve, red gold. I think they call it Sedna gold, and deep blue dial. And then I picked up my Christopher Ward Trident.
Oh yeah,
and left. that was my desire for a dress watch done.
Yeah, I know I wouldn't wear one. I don't know. Bandrew, have you got a dress watch in your collection?
I have tried. I did pick up a. Oh gosh, I'm completely blanking on it. Yes, I do have a dress watch. Do I wear it ever? No.
It's like a Bambino or a Bambino or something.
No, I don't know why I can't think of it. The Bauhaus School of Design. It's just completely slipped my mind.
Oh, like Braun?
Or Braun or...
It's
Nomos?
Nomos?
No, nope. It's it's the one where it's all dial.
Young Hands.
Young Hands, yeah. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Max Bill.
Yeah,
design.
and I just picked up it's a gold-plated quartz version. Because I was like, I don't know why I have the urge for this, and I have worn it 2 or 3 times, I think.
I find my dress watch tastes. I've looked at Vacheron or Patrimony, the IWC, the Omega. I would never wear them. I just don't. I'm not in a suit and a tie or that sort of company often enough to justify it. I do enjoy window shopping them, but I haven't got to the point where either professionally or personally I would wear one enough to justify it.
Yeah, I gravitate more towards silvery, platinum and things like that as it, or white gold. But I don't think I would buy a watch in that material because, firstly, a platinum is otherworldly in terms of its weight, isn't it? I picked up a President in platinum, and it's like tungsten. It felt like really heavy, so I don't know whether I would. I think white gold has got some weight to it as well, but I would just think, I just might as well get stainless steel then if I'm going to go for a white metal. Okay, so actually, Thomas, who's coming in with the double header question here. So. Question: what are each of your primary choices in choosing a watch? Dial, case, movement, complication, brand, etc. All of those? I don't know. Is anybody? Yeah. What's your? I would say. Okay, so I was a bit flippant then. If I'm being honest, dial, I'm definitely going through a phase of either green or blue. So I wouldn't go for a black dial watch at them in my current collection at the moment for the taste arc that I'm currently on. So yeah, dial definitely, and movements probably second, and complications. I'm going for a GMT phase. Steve? What do you think on this one? How do you buy and sell quite a few, don't you?
Yeah, I know. Honestly, I go through phases more than anything. Right now, I'm into Seiko quartz chronographs from the 80s. So I don't know, like I go through these little phases where, and we're talking about dress watches. There's a period where I was really into Longines dress watches a couple of years ago. So yeah, it really just varies depending on, what I think is cool. And I think Instagram for me is a big influence. I look at what other collectors on there are wearing and what I think is cool. And watch blogs and things like that. And, I think part of it for me is it's a journey, right? And so I'm wanting to try different things, wanting to try new watches that either I've never owned before, or maybe I owned it a long time ago and I wrote it off because I thought this is not cool, or it's it's not a mechanical, or it's not an automatic. So yeah, I think there's no right or wrong answer here. I think it's all just part of the journey, and making mistakes is part of the journey, and discovering new things and trying out, different brands and styles that you didn't normally think you'd wear. Red Bar is great for that because, you can go to an event and you can see all different brands and models and styles that you've never seen before, and you can try them on. So I really just enjoy, I think, the discovery part of it more than anything. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's kind of where my mind is.
Yeah. Anybody else want to take a stab at that before we go on to the next question?
Well, I can take a stab, and I'm going to answer it in reverse order, even though I'm going to completely sound like a hypocritical idiot the minute I say it, because I'm going to then defend why it's important. First, movement. So the movement is the least important thing to me, but it becomes a very important thing once they started throwing a price in there. And I know it's just me being stupid, but the minute a watch gets over like $5,000, if it doesn't have some interesting thing about the movement, whether it be in-house, whether it be just a complication of some kind, then I start to care. You know, I can't spend good money on a cheap, you know, Etta or Salida just because I feel like you can get something better. And the other questions I'm going to sum up into one thing. I just look at the watch and I just want it to be exciting. And I'm doing something that I don't think I've ever done on my channel. I think everybody in the world has done this. There's a publication out there that made a bunch of, you know, I guess web pages on different watches and different price groups. And it's kind of fun to go through because I'm not used to looking at some of these watches or some of these brands. And I mean, I feel like sometimes I'll just dismiss it immediately because I'll just look at it and go, boring. And I mean, I know that's kind of wrong. I should probably do a little bit of research in it. But if I look at a watch and it's just so boring that I don't even want to go to the next step, next. And that's the thing. It could be the dial. It could be the case. You know, it could be, you know, something else in there. But I just need to look at a watch and say, ooh, that's interesting. And then I start to delve into it. And probably, if I had to pick number one out of that, it's probably the dial. I just like a dial that's got stuff on it. And I think I was making fun of, I was probably hurt a whole bunch of people's feelings because some guy put up a 3-shot of like 3 of the most expensive watches in the world, like a Royal Oak, an Antarctique, and a Vacheron Overseas. And my exact words were boring because there's nothing on the dial. Like they're just plain watches. And I would take a dual time AP any day over it. I would take the weird 2 registered Antarctique, you know, any day over that one. It's just, there needs to be something on there, some sort of dial furniture to make it fun.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, next question. Actually, so we have to correct an earlier statement. So apparently Benjamin, who was asking about the, do we know Wolfgang Rice? Apparently it wasn't a joke. He said it was my dad and he sold it before he died. I've exhausted all options to try and locate the watch. I have pics of him wearing it. So he's actually trying to track down a watch there. So sorry, Benjamin, we thought it was a joke. But yeah, so if anybody, I don't know if anybody that's watching this knows, but I'll leave a comment I'll leave a comment under this video. See if we've got anything else on.
Do you want to do Thomas's third question about price?
Yeah. So what is your general comfort zone price point for purchasing a watch? How would we define that? Would we say is comfort zone where you don't really have to think about it? As soon as if you see it, you really like it, like, yeah, I can just do that now? Or is it you feel comfortable, but it's going to hurt a little bit?
I think you got both. I think you have to do it 2 parts. Kind of what's your absolute ceiling if you have one? And then, as you said, what's the one where if you see the watch you're looking for, you can just be like, yes, without having to go either ask your wife or go sell some property to afford it.
Or some organs.
Mine is about 500 probably, I would guess, in that.
Comfort zone as in where I think my collection tends to be bimodal, as there's an expensive section and a not expensive section. So the answer would probably be around 4,000 if I combined them. Clearly the expensive watches don't come along as often. But my comfort zone is probably around 1,200 to 1,500, the Christopher Ward zone. And then, yeah, I've got a decent number of Omega to my name, but I don't buy as many of those a year as I do CWs.
Yeah, Jack's saying you mean your wife's comfort zone.
I have to be honest and say that my other half is very good with this. We have separate bank accounts, and so long as she doesn't find the credit card receipt for She doesn't complain. I am very lucky. She doesn't notice when I'm wearing a new watch either. So I'm very lucky. She doesn't notice the financial damage, and she doesn't notice the new watches. So I can get away with a lot. My wife is a wonderful person, by the way.
Yeah, that is a smart man.
So is my wife. My wife's not a watch fan, but she certainly she doesn't know what watches are. She doesn't know what different watches are brand wise, but she certainly knows if I've got a new one on my wrist.
I wore a bright blue Christopher Ward, bright blue bezel, bright blue dial, and I wore it for a month after I bought it. And my wife said, "Oh, you went to England. Did you go to Christopher Ward?" And I went, "Yes." "Did you buy anything?" And I went, "Yes." I said, "Oh, what?" I said, "This. I've been wearing it for a month." True story. It had been staring her in the face for a month, and she hadn't noticed. So I can't complain about that at all.
Yeah. Bandrew, what's your comfort zone, would you say, with your
So my upper limit is the Tudor price range. I used to want a Speedmaster. I'm priced out of that. So that's above my ceiling. But as far as my actual comfort zone for purchasing, it used to be 100 to 500. But after realizing how much money I spent because they were only 100 to 500, now my comfort zone is $0 because I had to stop myself and say, okay, yeah, but you just spent $2,000. Yeah, they were $200, $300 watches this year, but that's $2,000 you could have saved for another one. So my comfort zone now is $0.
That's a good comfort zone to have. To be fair.
That is a good comfort zone.
I wish I had that discipline. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it helped me. I mean, I need to stop obsessing about watches because that's what got me in trouble with the last Grand Seiko was getting a bit irrational about it and so on. And I suppose the funny thing if anybody's not seen my Seiko video, I made a video about how I made a mistake buying a video, and it seems like every commenter is like, "Whoa, you really made a mistake there." Like, yeah, I did. That's what the video's about.
That's the point of the video.
That's the arc. But I appreciate everyone that watched it, obviously. When I did when I bought my Rolex, which was I saved for it last year, I did a one watch challenge, and I was like, no, if I'm buying this, I've got to focus. And it did help me. I might need to think about it like that. I've only got one more watch incoming, which was the pre-order for the Magnum PI watch. So that's the only one I've got coming in, but it doesn't help, of course, having to research watches for the channel. But I don't know. Steve, what's your comfort zone? Did you answer this already?
No, I haven't. And I think mine is kind of similar to Mark's. I mean, I get way more enjoyment out of buying cheaper watches than I do more expensive watches. I don't know why that is, but like 500 to like 1,500 is like, I feel like there are some really cool models in that price range, very high quality, and it's very competitive, and there's so much to get in that price range, and I just find myself wearing it more often because I'm less worried about wearing it. Like the most I would probably be willing to spend would be about $7,000, and I have watches in that range, and I don't wear them that much because I'm nervous about like what if I get robbed? What if what if a spring bar pops off and it falls on the ground? Any number of things. So like I really enjoy wearing cheaper watches because I think they're more enjoyable for me, and I'm less worried about them. And if something happens, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah,
and certainly if I was going to Barcelona, I'd be wearing a G-Shock. There are certain cities in the world where you don't wear a decent watch because it will go.
Yeah, we've got a couple. I think we've got time for a couple more questions. So William asks, Peter's stolen a time machine from the Australian military, allegedly. For a small fee, each of you can go back in time and either meet a historical watch figure or purchase a watch. What would you do? My answer is I'd first go and get full camo gear I'd go back in the time machine, and I would follow the postman that picked up Buzz Aldrin's watch to take it to the Smithsonian, and I would stalk him. I would like be behind the trees and everything. I'm like, where's he going with that watch? What has he picked it up? First of all, I'd make sure the watch was in there somehow, that Buzz hadn't put it in the crawl space, and then I'd be like following like a hawk, watching for the. It'd be like a military operation, working out where that watch went. But I don't know. Anybody else want to take a stab at this?
I would go back to the time of John Arnold and Louis Abraham Breguet and find out who actually designed the bloody tourbillon.
Or you get the top of Everest. What watch are you wearing? Is that an Rolex Explorer?
Yeah.
Because people on the internet that you've never heard of are going to debate this forever.
And there's certainly a couple of drunk purchases I would unbuy per Michael's comment.
Yeah. The bad news for me is I don't really know. I mean, I don't really think I want to meet any of the historical figures. I'll stick to my old schoolness of I just don't care about history. But if I was to go back in time, I'd probably find a really cool pocket watch that maybe doesn't exist, or at that time was relatively affordable but now isn't, like maybe the Waltham stone collection. The movement was made out of rock crystal, and so they're like see-through, and of course by now they've all cracked because they've had them serviced, and someone tightens the screw just a little too much and it cracks the crystal, and so the whole watch is pretty much made out of stone. And you can only imagine how fragile a 200-year-old stone watch would be. So maybe if I went back and I could afford one, even though I think they were absurdly priced back then, that would be really cool to just keep and never service and just have it be flawless. So that would be the only reason, would be to protect something that doesn't get protected well.
Yeah, and we've got to be careful so that Jean-Claude Van Damme doesn't come back in time and arrest us for disrupting the space-time continuum with his splits.
Or how about I would go back in time and tell myself not to drop my Speedmaster so that it took 2 years for Omega to repair it. That would be a good one.
Yeah, you suddenly meet yourself say, "Don't drop that Omega," and then you'd be like, "Well, like, can you not tell me like the lottery numbers or like who wins the Super Bowl?"
No, don't drop the Omega.
All the things.
Don't drop the Omega.
Like, thanks, future me.
Don't drop the Omega. It's far more important.
Let's see. Okay, well, maybe we'll do one more question if everybody's got time. Question for the panel and chat: would you rebuy any of the watches you no longer have? I have promised myself I wouldn't do this, so I think it kind of gets over the because I have sold some. I sell a lot of watches, and I try not to get, once they're gone, I try and package them up and file them back, so I don't obsess about them. But does anybody else? Steve, you mentioned before, didn't you, that you have rebought watches?
I've done it multiple times, and I think I do it more with Seikos than anything else, because there's so many of them out there, and there's one. It's a Seiko Rally Diver. That's kind of the regatta one. And it's got this kind of crazy rainbow colored outer ring on the dial, and I had a really beautiful version of it, and I sold it, and it's one watch that I've always thought about buying again. However, I noticed that on eBay, a lot of them have been popping up, and they look pristine. And so it looks like one of those models where someone's kind of replicated these old parts.
The dials.
That makes me a little bit skeptical about buying another one. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, I've repurchased stuff over and over again, and like the Seiko Turtle. I mean, I've probably owned like 4 or 5 of those. And I sell them, and I'll buy another one because they're just so cool and they're affordable, and Yeah, why not? So I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all. Sometimes, you're at a different point in your life, or you're in a different point of your collecting experience. And so if there's something that, you don't like, but then you think you might like it again later, like, buy it. Why not?
Yeah. Has anybody else, Patrick, have you ever rebought a watch?
I mean, I've only rebought one, and it's
Oh yeah,
that
there you
weirdo.
go.
So, and the only reason I sold it was because when it, intentionally breaks every 10 years because of that capacitor issue, I couldn't afford to get it replaced 20 years ago because I was just a bum. And I guess now I can. So I sent it off to Seiko a couple weeks ago, and well, I've now attached another ball and chain to me because it sounds like every 10 years I'm going to have to get it fixed again. But, for that watch, as I said, I kind of talked myself into it because I just remember wearing it and enjoying it so much that it's worth it. And that's what, to me, the whole hobby is about. If you kind of lose love with a watch, I'm perfectly okay with getting rid of it. And for some odd reason, if like Steve regains his love, yeah, get it back.
Yeah, Orange Hand says, a look at rebuying watches is like getting together with an ex. Nothing good can come of it. Yeah. So, Mark or Bandrew, have you rebought watches?
I have a very bad habit of not selling anything, and it all stems from my microphone channel because I need to keep everything to refer back to it. So when I got into watches, I just said, I can't get rid of it. And I'm glad I made that decision, because had I not done that, I would have gotten rid of the King Turtle and I wouldn't have fallen in love with it. And that there's a lot of watches that when I initially get them, I don't love them. And then they kind of percolate for a few months, and then I try them on again, and I just say, wait a second, this is pretty sweet. So I've not sold anything. That may change in the future because this is a problem, but yeah, I don't have any experience rebuying something.
I haven't sold many watches, but I have no regrets. The watches I've sold, I either realized that they were a mistake or I found something about them I really didn't like. I then sit on them for 6 months to a year because I'm lazy. And if I haven't missed it in 6 months or a year, sell it, no regrets, walk away.
Yeah, I'm like that. I have to build up because I've mentioned this on the channel before, but I stopped drinking about 7 years ago, and you have to build up like a demonized. Oh yeah, remember that time you were hungover? You know. So you have to kind of think of all the negatives instead of the pot where you're like, oh yeah, but I was dead sociable. You've got to think about it. So I do that with watches, like the turtle, for example. I would love to get another turtle, but the one I had, the movement went bad on it, and I ended up doing a whole video where we swapped out the movement and so on and so on. So I know I'd be like, oh. I think we made the best version of the turtle because we upgraded the movement in it. But yeah, and I'm now. I would think, oh, would I like it again? Or so I try not to think too much about it. There is one watch I regret selling, which was a CWC mechanical watch, but that I only regret selling it because I think I could have got more for it. But I try not to. I try not to obsess about ones I've got, because I guess with reviewing watches as well. Somebody in the comments was asking about when I did my last watch show. Oh, what about all those watches you reviewed? Do you not keep them? And I kind of explain it like, well, I think of myself as like a restaurant critic where I go and eat, and I like, oh yeah, that meal was good, or oh, that meal was a bit crap. I don't have to eat the same meal every single day. You know what I mean? Just because I liked it. Because I like that pizza was great. I don't want the pizza every single day. So I think about watches like that. I would, I'd give them away afterwards, or move them on. Although I'm not a lot of the new relationships with the watch brands like Casio and Citizen and stuff like that. A lot of those aren't keepers anyway. They go back. So I suppose that helps as well. Okay. Well, I think that was great. Yeah. Just I think we've got pretty much all the questions. If you asked any and we missed it, I apologize. But big thanks to the panel, and thanks for everybody being so active in the chat. I think that was probably one of the most amount of questions that we've got, well thought out questions as well. So Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks.